Amendment by Zwiener.
Chair recognizes Ms. Zwiener.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this is a little bit of a tailored version of my last amendment, again, to make sure that if we are talking about how to protect women and girls, we do it in the ways women and girls actually need. My amendment makes legislative findings acknowledging the long-standing history of discrimination against women on the basis of sex. Members, that discrimination includes women having a history of not being able to vote, being prohibited from owning property, being prohibited from acquiring credit, prohibited from attending education institutions, being discriminated against in the workplace. Equal pay issues continue to this day, and women being subjected to sex-based violence.
Mr. Speaker,
Ms. Gonzalez, for what purpose?
does the gentlelady yield?
Does the gentlelady yield for questions?
I do.
Gentlelady yields.
Thank you, Representative Zwiener, for a very important amendment that really nobody should be against, because we're really just talking about, if we're going to have a conversation about the Women's Bill of Rights, then let's honor what a Bill of Rights would actually do. And you didn't hear this, but at the back mic earlier, there were some of our colleagues saying, women, we have the right to vote right now. Why are we even bringing up this conversation? But isn't it true that there are federal threats to women having equal access to voting right now in our federal government?
That is correct. As you well know, women are much more likely to change their name throughout their lives when they get married or get divorced. And what that means is that some of these incredibly stringent documentation laws might threaten women who have changed their name and haven't had time to update all that documentation yet. And that means they might not be able to vote. And that would be a horrendous outcome and a giant step backwards for women in Texas.
And additionally, your amendment is talking about making sure that women are not discriminated against in the workplace or are subjected to sex-based violence. That's like human trafficking and other violent crimes. Is that accurate?
My amendment is definitely engaging with the fact that that type of discrimination and harassment is odious, and we as the state should help push back against that. That is how we protect women. It's not to go look for imaginary villains. It is to deal with these real problems that are in front of us every single day.
Representative Zwiener, I appreciate your amendment. I appreciate the conversation of how we truly can all come together to protect women.
Thank you, Rep. Gonzalez. Members, please adopt this amendment so that we give women the protections they actually need. Make sure that we codify that the legislature believes that men and women are equals who are afforded the same non-discrimination and equality protections. Make sure we put into the code that we, the legislature, believe that there is no valid biological basis for discrimination against women on the basis of sex. Make sure that we put into statute that we, the legislature, believe that policies and laws should only distinguish between the sexes when there is an important governmental objective that can only be achieved by the distinction. Members, every single woman on this floor has experienced sexism at some time in their lives. We have made a lot of progress, but we are not done. And it is important that we don't go backwards. Vote yes on this amendment for women's full equality. I move adoption.
Chair recognizes Ms. Troxclair.
The purpose of this bill is to reinforce women's hard-fought rights. This amendment dilutes our immutable differences, and I move to table.
Would the gentlelady yield for questions?
The gentlelady has moved to table. Ms. Zwiener sends up an amendment. Excuse me. The chair recognizes Ms. Zwiener to close on her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, not at this
Mr.
time.
Bucy, for what purpose?
Oh,
Will the gentlelady yield for questions?
not at this time.
Not at this time.
Mr. Speaker, members, I want to ask you to oppose this motion to table, because if we are talking about how to support women, it is about breaking down barriers, not building up new ones. My amendment corrects that deficiency in HB 229 and makes sure that we can all vote on a bill that is actually good for the women and girls of Texas. And with that, I'm happy to yield for questions.
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Bucy, for what purpose?
Will the gentlelady yield for questions?
Gentlelady yields for questions.
I do.
Thank you, Representative, for yielding. Unfortunately, the bill author did not And I wanted to know why she would be opposed to putting in a statute that men and women are equal and are afforded the same non-discrimination and equality protections. I don't know if you and her were able to have a conversation. Ms. Speaker, can we get some order? We got a representative just yelling over the mic over here. I think he's a rep.
Members, please take your conversations outside the rail.
So were y'all able to have a conversation up there about why she's opposing your amendment?
Representative Troxclair and I were able to visit about a few things, but unfortunately we weren't able to visit about the content of this amendment. I don't want to put language into anybody's mouths, but for me, the concern it raises is that the purpose of this bill isn't really to help women and girls. It's to try and attack the transgender community and make them feel unwelcome in the state of Texas. So if that's not our goal, my amendment fixes that and makes this actually a bill for women and girls. And folks should vote no on the motion to table.
So if someone votes on the motion to table, if they vote to table your amendment, they are saying that in the eyes of the law, they do not agree that men and women are equal and are afforded the same non-discrimination and equality protections. Would that be correct?
They are voting against that language,
So
yes.
they are saying they do not agree with codifying that and stating that men and women are equal and should be afforded the same non-discrimination and equality protections.
That is the vote they would be taking.
And you are just
against this
trying
bill.
to say that men and women under the law should be equal.
Yes, absolutely. There's some really worrying language in these findings that literally says when it comes to sex, separate is not always unequal. And if we are even approaching language like that, members, we should be concerned. Separate but equal is one of the darkest phrases to come out of our Supreme Court. And the fact that we're mimicking similar language, saying that separate isn't always unequal, that should worry us. So my amendment strikes that language and replaces it with positive language about women's equality.
Absolutely. So I appreciate your amendment. I think we should codify and be clear, members, what we're about to vote on. Representative Zwiener's amendment wants to codify that in the eyes of the law, men and women are equals and are afforded the same non-discrimination and equality protections. And if you vote to table, you're voting to not agree with that statement. Thank you, Representative Zwiener, for bringing this amendment.